In it for keepsake, in the field with the cleat lace. Beat freak with the bare face and the slick tongue, that's what she say. She look good, she a big tease when she bite lip with the wink face. Hella bad when she throwing it back.
All right, hello everyone, welcome back. Thank you for joining me this evening. I have a special guest joining me this evening. I have Frenchaire Gardner joining me. Now, Cher, she graduated from Southern Methodist University. She's gotten her Bachelor of Arts in Psychology and also in Sociology. So without further ado, let's welcome Frenchaire to the show.
Peace.
Hello, how are you this evening?
Good. Well, how are you?
I'm doing good. I'm glad to have you here. It's an honor to be able to do this interview with you.
Yes,
all
I'm
right,
grateful
so
to speak with you today.
All right, and so tonight we are going to get into, she's going to share her story of a lot of her trauma that she has gone through, but even most important, how she has managed to still survive and, just be that strong woman and overcome all of her, traumas and pains and still be able to be successful. So let's talk about, so you went to school for psychology.
Yes, I did. I took some, my freshman year, I took an introduction to psychology and sociology and ended up loving it. I really did. So I ended up studying it both.
Okay, so I take it that's what made you choose that career path, because you psychology.
Yes, I really enjoy the studies of people and how our minds work and our motivations and things like that. So that was the inspiration for that.
Okay, now can you tell me a little bit about sociology? Like, what is the difference between sociology and psychology?
So psychology and sociology are different in that sociology is mostly the study of the environments and the external factors that play a part in people's behaviors. And so psychology is different in that it's the study of the person, the mind, and that how the internal mind works.
Okay, okay, all right. And so, how long do you have to go to school for both, like psychology and sociology? What is like the term that you would have to attend school?
So I spent 4 years at Southern Methodist University, extra year because of my extracurricular activities. I ended up doing the extra year in the summer at UTD, but it took me 4 years to get a Bachelor of Arts degree in psychology and also a Bachelor of Arts and a Bachelor of Arts degree in sociology as well. So it took me 4 years.
Okay, all right. So let's talk about, let's get into like some of your past traumas that you have endured or suffered. Um, do you mind getting into the traumas that you suffered with your father?
Yes, ma'am. So I was molested by my father when I was about 3 or 4 years old, and the weird thing is about it is that I wasn't aware that that had happened until many years later. I was in my 20s and I had actually graduated from college, and I had started drinking. I had my first job, and I was drinking a lot. I was drinking really heavy, and gratefully and thankfully, the employer that I was working for, they had a clinic and a doctor, and so I was able to see the doctor often. And one day, this doctor, and she was a Black lady, she said, "What is going on with you? Have you been molested?" And I'm like, why would you ask me that? She was like, well, it's something going on that you are drinking so much, and because you trying to repress it. And she said you should go get you some counseling and therapy to your insurance coverage. So I did immediately. And what that led to was a discovery after, several questioning from my therapist. It led to me discovering that I had repressed and blocked out being molested by my father when I was a child and my parents were still married. So he was alcoholic, and he was sick is what I'm gonna say. But he definitely molested me, and that was that experience.
So how old were you when this happened?
I was a little girl when he molested me, like 3, 4, because my mother divorced him when I was 5. So they separated at that time. So I had to been younger than 5 years old.
Okay, all right. Cause so let's explain to me a little bit about repressed memories. Cause it's like, is it like one of those situations? Cause I know like I don't remember a lot of things from my childhood, but then there's like certain things that I do remember, like when I was a little girl, but I don't have no other memories. So is that what repressed memories are?
Possibly. So what we do is, and hello everybody out there, they saying hello. What we do is to protect ourselves as a defense mechanism, we 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 stop remembering things. We put it way in the back of our heads so that it doesn't hurt or harm us. And that's a defense mechanism that, as humans we do to protect ourselves. And certain things, in your life, in your environment, may trigger the memory of certain things. And that's what happened for me in therapy. She knew the right questions to ask to get an understanding, and she found it. And I was outdone. I was about, I say about 21, 22 years old or so.
So you were drinking a lot, and then you drinking a lot. Is that what like made you decide that maybe you should go talk to someone to see why you were drinking so much?
No, like I said, I was drinking so much and hungover at work, right? And that was happening on multiple occasions. And what was happening was I was like basically sleeping at work. And so I was a good worker. So they didn't want to fire me. So they kept sending me to our clinic. And the doctor at the
Okay.
clinic, she's the one that pressed me, and she was like, I think there's something going on with you in regards to this drinking, and I think there's an underlying issue that you haven't dealt with, and I think you should go ahead and deal with it with this counselor, with the therapist. And I I took her very seriously, and I didn't take it lightly what she said. And 20 years later, I can still recall this lady. I can't think of her name, but I can still recall this lady and how she affected me to the point where she pushed me to action. And uh, had I not seek therapy, maybe I still wouldn't have dealt with what had happened to me as a child.
Okay. And so then after you found that, realized that this happened, did anything like did you take any steps as far as like your father? Did you confront him? Did you bring any charges? How did you deal with that?
So didn't do very much. It wasn't until about maybe 3 or 4 years later, I was pregnant, having kids, and had gotten married. It wasn't until I got married at about 25 years old that I decided to speak up, cause my husband, he's my ex husband now, but at the time he was like, when I told him what happened with my father and I, he was so pissed off that he wanted to confront him, and so we did. So as a family, my baby, we had a newborn, and my ex husband, at the time we confronted my father, because at that time my father was in my life. I had a new baby, and I let him be a part of his grandson's life and that sort of thing. And so I confronted my father, and I told him that I figured out that you molested me, and that is how it's affected me in so many negative ways in my adulthood life in regards to how I relate to men. And his reaction was so strange. He laughed. That's what he did. He laughed. He didn't say, laughed. And so to me that was a mission. But even to go even further than that, like, the rumors got back to me. My first cousin told me that he was down in where we were from, and telling the family that I had confronted him. And so to me, that was just an admission of guilt, So that was that experience.
So when he was telling the other family this, did he ever say like, I don't know why she's saying this. This is not true. I don't know why she would think that. Did he ever say anything like, in that manner?
No, not at all.
Oh, wow. Okay. And so then how about, right, like today, do you have a relationship with your father? Have you just like kind of like dissolved that, or?
The funny thing is, Miss Londa, is life has a way of making you, well, I guess the word is humbling you. That's the word that I want to use. Life has a way to humble you. And so for many years, I hated my father. I hated my father, and didn't have anything to do with him. And for many years, I would let him know how I was just not gonna deal with him and deal with his troubles, because he just, outside of molesting me, he was just a negative influence, always begging for money, gambling, always drunk, just a whoremonger, just not a good influence. And I was just at as an adult, I was able to actually verbalize that to him, and I did all the time. So fast forward to current times in 2019. Well, I lived in St. Louis for almost 10 years between 2011 and 2019. And so I moved home before I was going to go to China to teach English. And so I was coming home to spend time with family, and during that time, my father had just had, and I hadn't talked to him for years at this point. But he had developed cancer. They had removed the lung cancer, and he, after the surgeries of removing the cancer, he developed double pneumonia. So my first cousin reached out to me. She's my best friend. And so she let me know that he was basically on his deathbed. And so, Londa, I had to it was like a crossroads decision for me. I had to make a decision for myself. Did I want to live with knowing that this man had died, and I had said nothing else to him outside of probably the hateful things that I felt for him many years ago? And I had already experienced that before. my sister, my only sister, oldest sister who raised me, she died. Shawnette Michonne Anderson. She died in 2011 in December suddenly, and I thought I had time. My mama was there the day before she died at the hospital with my sister, and she asked me. My mama asked me, did I want to talk to my sister Shanette that day, and I didn't, because my sister had lupus, and the lupus had given her schizophrenia. And I remember most times, just by forms of patterns of habit, when she was sick, she used to have a real bad attitude. And so I didn't really want to deal with it. So, but she died on me. She died the next morning. And so when there was no more time for me to talk to her. So I didn't want that experience to happen with me with my father, even though our relationship wasn't, anything. I didn't want to have that weight on my spirit of, okay, I didn't want to regrets. So I went
Right.
to the hospital. Yeah. I drove to the hospital with my mother's support, and I visited with him, and it was good. And since then, Londa, I have a relationship with my father. He didn't done a whole 360 as far as attitudes and lifestyle, but it's kind of karma to me. I kind of laugh. I have to laugh to keep
Yeah.
from crying, cause karma is a B for real. He did all this. He didn't live a good lifestyle. He wasn't a good father. He wasn't a good husband. And to me, as a result, his body has decayed and diminished. And I don't wish no bad on nobody. I just know that karma is just what it is. And so in his
Yeah.
decline in health, like, he can't see, he can't hear, he can't, he's barely getting around. And but that has humbled him. He's a nice person. He can't go out and gamble. He might still drink. He still drinks, but he's not a negative influence to me. Like, I can deal with him now, and we have nice conversations. And he asked me about his grandchildren and just things that he didn't have. Like, he's actually being a father. So I'm grateful. I if it would have been a different situation, I would have just let him just rock.
Okay. All right. And so then you also have been through some domestic abuse. Now, the domestic abuse, do you think that the relationship or the situation with your father, do you think that may have played a part in, your relationships?
Most definitely, Miss Londa. I feel like, my relationships with men was a direct correlation with, how I was treated for my father. I recognized that I was looking for love in sex, and sex is a form of love, but not, the full expression of it. And it really played a part with me not trusting men, or just not good relationships, and not choosing good men for myself, and not trusting my instincts, or even also paying attention to the red flags that people show us in our day-to-day interactions. So definitely the relationship I have and had with my father has a strong relationship and correlation to how I interact with me. Most definitely.
Okay. All right. And then so then you went through like a time of being homeless, and you suffered from bipolar and depression. You want to talk about that?
Yes, ma'am. So in correlation with the homelessness that I experienced, I lost my 4 children. Before I became homeless, I lost my 4 children to CPS. due to situation and circumstances with my ex-husband. And so to bear 4 children, my children, Joseph Jr., Frenchaire 2, Melchizedek, and Sarai, to bear them out of my womb and then have them removed out of my life was devastating for me at that time. And I was married, but I was just emotionally, mentally, spiritually drained, and I was not myself, to say the least. And the homelessness came about because there was no, for me, there was no more motivation. Without my children, there was nothing really else to live for at that, is the way I felt at that time. And so and my ex-husband, he wasn't a great consistent worker. I was really the one who made the money in our relationship. And so without me trying to figure out how to make money, we had nothing. We had nowhere to be and nowhere to go. And so I definitely experienced that. And what a time, and that's a humbling experience. Become homeless and not to go from having what you need and your shelter, food, water, clothes, to not having that, and to having to figure things out, trying to figure out how to stay warm, how to work in your sleep. We were sleeping, basically at the edge of a cemetery in a park, so just creepy crap, just things I would have never fathomed for my life. Here I am. I graduated from prestigious university of Southern Methodist University here in Dallas, Texas, and to be homeless, it was a joke in my head, but it wasn't. This was my real life experiences, and I'm sure the bipolar depression had played a part, and the mental health had played definitely played a part, and still plays a part in my life. I have to take, I don't have to take, but I take medicines to regulate the serotonin and the chemicals in my brain, so I can stay motivated, because it's just me. I'm not married. There's not anyone particularly supporting me, so I have to rely on myself, it's a challenge. I have to say it's a challenge, because there are days that I wake up a day and I have to go to work, and I can't. I literally can't get out of bed. Like, all my mind is saying, just sleep, sleep, sleep. Don't get up, and that's the depression part of it. And then there's the side where there's the manic episodes, the highs, where I feel like a rock star and I can go all night, I can go all day, and I have all these lofty dreams and these lofty goals, and I'm gonna get all this stuff done. And I do get quite a bit done. That is a time when I'm very creative. I'm painting, I'm doing my podcast, I'm doing all kinds of stuff, writing. But is it intentional, or is it going to get me somewhere? Who knows? I'm just out there, and I'm spending money. I'm not like budgeting. I'm not caring about how the money goes. It's really interesting having bipolar. The highs and lows ebbed with me just being under emotional zodiac sign, or ruled by the moon as a Cancer. I just be going through changes. So I, like, literally I had to go in and get me some more medicine, because I was like, I'm spiraling out. I'm not being responsible, and 'cause some of that is just like choices, but other parts of it is just the chemical imbalances doing me dirty, is how I call it.
Okay. I have a few questions for the from the viewers, but before that, I wanted to ask, what age were your children when you lost them?
Oh, that's a good question. Oh my God. So my oldest son, Joseph Jr., was he was talking. So he was about maybe 4 or 5 at the most. Then Frenchaire 2, she's 1 year younger, so she was either 4 or 3. She had to been like 4. Because both of them were talking. And then my youngest 2 were babies. They weren't talking yet. So Melchizedek was 2. And I literally had just had Sarai. She was taken within the first year of birth.
Okay.
And now,
all right. And
it's a wild, like, it's been so long. They're all teenagers now.
okay. And so did you ever, get custody back or?
No, never got custody. Fought really hard without an attorney to get them back. Made appeals, nothing. Their foster parents was championing for me to get them back, but the system was. I really say they leaned against me because I said that I had bipolar, and I feel like they discriminated against me because they have bipolar. They had already messed up and kidnapped my kids. They weren't supposed to just take the kids without making me aware they was going to do that. So they had just done a lot of dirty things. They never gave my kids back. My children have been adopted. They were adopted in I want to say it was 2014.
Okay. So now you said you lost him due to your ex-husband. What was the original case? What was the original reason why CPS stepped in to take your children?
That's a good question, Londa. We'd gotten a lot of CPS cases over the course of time. First case, they we were called on because this was when my baby was just a newborn. We were both in the choir at church, and we were at the choir at church, and we sang in the choir, and we were pretty protective of our baby. This was my first baby, and we were protective of our baby. And instead of giving the baby to someone while we were singing in the choir stand on the pulpit, we had the baby in the choir stand, and somebody called on us and said they made a case out of that, saying that the baby's ears were being harmed.
Really?
the cases were crazy. Another case, we were arguing, and you know how you have the baby strapped up on you right here on your chest.
Yeah.
And the street was closed. The sidewalk was closed. So we happened to be walking in the street trying to get down the street. And they called CPS on us for that because we was arguing in the streets with the babies. So we got several cases that were kind of like trumped up, because we were, despite any of the conflicts that my ex-husband and I had personally, I believe that we were good parents, to the best of our abilities and to the best of our resources. So I believe that answers your question.
So did they ever offer you any parenting classes? Any, because usually they in and they take your, they have you do parenting classes, they have you do anger management, they do home studies. They do ever do any of that with you?
Yes, ma'am. So eventually the kids got taken because we had a domestic violence case. We were fighting. My ex-husband hit me. I called the police on him, and they took him to jail. But that happened several times. But the last time it happened, he got a felony. They gave him a felony because he'd had too many, cases like that. And so once he got the felony, CPS was like, well, we don't want him around the kids. And being a child who was raised by a single mother, not really having my father was always in town, but he was never in my life. And to experience that, I didn't want that for my kids. So I wasn't, and my mindset at that time was I wasn't going to let nobody, no system, nobody tell me that my kids weren't going to be around their daddy. Because I wanted them to have that, because I knew what it was like to grow up without a father. And I didn't want that for my children. And so I done forgot the question. I'm sorry.
It was basically, I was just asking, was there steps that they had you to take to get your children back?
Yes.
And basically it boiled down to they didn't want the father around because of the felony due to domestic abuse, because they don't want the kids around the violence, and maybe they might have felt like it would trickle down to the kids, maybe. So do you regret that decision?
I did. I'm gonna answer both of your questions. We both, as a couple, before he got the felony, we were taking classes. We took domestic violence classes. We took anger management classes. We took substance abuse classes. We took parenting classes. We took all day classes. And then once we were separated and it was just me with the children, I took all the classes. And that's what was even more frustrating for me, Londa, was that I was doing everything possible to keep my kids. And it was just like nothing was good enough.
And so what age were they adopted at? Or wait, so let's back up. The last question was, did you regret the decision that you made in continuing to keep the father around?
Most definitely. I didn't know that was going to cost me my kids. I definitely did not know that decision was going to cost me my kids. I would have did a different route. I definitely would have went a different route. No, in hindsight, knowing what I know now, I definitely, would have done. Wish I would have done something different, but I don't live in no regrets right now. I'm forgiving myself for the situation and how it played out. And so at this point, damn near 20 years later, I don't have any regrets about, what happened. It happened. And it was, to me, is a direct result of our actions, unfortunately.
And so how old are your children today, and do you have a relationship with them now?
Good question. Joseph Jr. is 17 years old. He'll be a senior in high school next school year. Frenchaire 2 is 16. Melchizedek is 14, and my youngest Sarai is 13. As I stated, they all teenagers now. And my oldest son found me on the internet, and he's been looking, been finding me on the internet for a few years, several years since he'd been adopted. And they were adopted probably 4 or 5 years after they, spent all those years in foster care. And they live in another state. They were adopted in a closed adoption, which means that the adopted parent has the right to allow the biological parents to be in the children's lives or not. So, I for a time, like after maybe their second year in adoption, they allowed me, the mother allowed me to call and talk to my children. And so that went on for about a year and a half, up until I must have overstepped my bounds and asked her, could the following summer could we meet up so I could see my kids? And she changed her number on me, changed the address, the PO box, and so I wasn't able to have no contact with them up until maybe 2 years ago when my oldest son reached out to me on the internet, and so I talked to my oldest son, and yeah, we have a relationship, but he's the only one that I talk to.
Okay, so are all the kids with the same adoptive family?
Yes, they all in the same house.
Well, that's good. That's a good thing.
Yeah,
that's good.
Yeah, that's a blessing. They growing up together.
Yeah. Okay. And then so you wrote a book called what was it called? Mommy and Daddy, Do You Still Love Me Anymore? Was the name of the book that you wrote. And this book was pretty much dedicated to your children. And the message is to let them know that you still love them. And it's also a message to kids in foster care who have adopted and also adopted adults, correct?
Yes.
So let's talk about the book.
Okay, I gladly. So this is the second edition. Mommy and Daddy, Do You Still Love Me Anymore? Londa, I woke up from a vivid dream back in 2019. And in December 2019, my activist peer was telling me that I had not done enough to let my children know that I still love them. And this is before my oldest son had reached out to me. And so I woke up from that vivid dream. The next morning, I penned the first edition of my children's book, Mommy and Daddy, Do You Still Love Me Anymore? It was unedited. It had no illustrations. It just had a picture of my family on the cover. And I published it. Not only did I write it, I wrote it, and I published it in one setting, in one day, and on Amazon. And so it's an ebook. And so then I turned around 2 years later, collaborated with my good friend and girlfriend, sister friend, Dell Chambers, to illustrate the children's book. And the rest is history. So now, that book is, like you said, just like you said, it's a love letter. It's a love letter to my 4 children. And also it's a book of hope to let, because I want to say that adopted and foster care children, because I talked to a few adults after writing the book, and they feel abandoned the whole experience, by their biological parents, and they're not aware of, that they're not aware that their mamas and daddies still love them, and that their mamas and daddies still think about them, because they can't see or touch them. So this book is a story of hope to let them know that yes, your biological mamas, your biological daddies, they do, in fact, are still thinking about you, still care, still love you, and the separation means nothing. We're still bonded.
And so do you know if your children have read that book or know that you published that book?
My oldest son does, for sure. Like I said, I have no communication with the other 3. So, but my oldest son definitely knows about it for sure.
All right, and where are you from?
You said what?
What state are you from?
Big Texas. Hey.
Okay. All right. And You have the desire to see others excel, especially Black and Brown business owners. This passion has led you to starting your business, Be and Us LLC, that promotes your business and others. Let's talk a little bit about that.
Yes, ma'am. In St. Louis, Missouri, I did register the business Be and Us LLC as a brand to not only promote and sell my own products, but also to promote Black business owners' products, to get them, you know, I sell to whoever I sell to, but maybe if you sell it, you got a whole different group of people, so that's the concept that I was working with. And so at the time I started vending and going to community events, selling my stuff, whatever I was selling, t-shirts, shea butter. I've done all kinds of stuff. But I also incorporate other products from other Black brands. Now I've transitioned from that. You guys see, I moved here to Dallas. I'm not really known as an entrepreneur. And so I had to move a little bit different and kind of take my business online, but then I haven't had any success in that. So that's pretty much my brand. So I still use that same concept because I still love Black business owners and promoting them. So that's how I started the podcast as well. Well, that's how the podcast is transitioned to where it is now, promoting Black business owners and artists.
All right, and so what are some of the things that you discuss like on your podcast?
So on the News You Can Use podcast, I promote BIPOC business owners, entrepreneurs, and artists. And I do that. I use my platform for that sole purpose because mainstream media is not uh, giving us our proper shine. We are really doing some impactful things across the diaspora. And so I think it's important that Black business owners get promoted and highlighted. On our podcast, I interview BIPOC business owners and artists. We talk about I allow them to tell their business stories, how they started their businesses, the circumstances that was driven around it, and they talk about what they do within the communities, and how they're impacting people in their businesses. And I also do a Black interview series that I had started many years ago. It was written when I first started, but now I ask a few questions on the interviews on the News You Use podcast, and it's called Black Influencers Values. And I ask deep questions like, what are describe yourself in 3 words. What was that situation that really changed your life. I asked about their saving habits and things like that, and ask them how they balance their personal and business lives, and just get into their heads. I want to know what motivating them, what's inspiring them. And so we also, the last few minutes of our podcast, I asked that each business owner or artist, they drop 2 gems of how what should be, just advice on how what an aspiring business owner needs to know. And so everybody always adds so much value. And that's what we talk about. And I play music. I have local and people from all over the world. They not just any people, Black people from all over the world. They email me their music, and I play their music on the podcast as well.
Okay, well that sounds interesting. I'm gonna have you at the end to let us know where we could find you.
Okay.
Your book has, let me see. I'm reading my notes because my brain is not that big. Okay, so in 2022, the book won honorable mention at the honorable mention. Oh, book fest in Family Genre in 2022.
Yes, it did. I entered my last year. I entered my books, my children's book into my first contest. See how we can do it. The Book Fest Spring 22 and one honorable mention. It was. I was so grateful. Like I was like, what me? I won. So I won honorable mention in the category that I submitted the book to, the nonfiction family genre, and one honorable mention. So yeah, we're definitely grateful for that honor, most definitely.
Now, that's not the only thing that has been honored because you also you do painting and writing, and you use those tools to heal from your traumas. But in doing your paintings, it also was in. And let me see. Oh, okay. So your painting, First Bloom, was selected for London's No Name Gallery in 2021.
Yes, ma'am. Been painting. I've been painting and loving it. I'm an abstract painter. I like to use acrylics and mixed media. And shoot, just trying some things. I just feel like you don't know what'll happen. So if you don't put yourself out there, then you never know what happens. So this painting right here, um this is on a notebook, the painting on a notebook, but this is what First Bloom looks like. Um and I did. I entered it into a contest. They have a monthly contest and it's still running. The No Name Gallery in London. And I submitted a few paintings and they was feeling First Bloom, and it is in their magazine. They have a print magazine. They print a magazine every month or every quarter, and it's on their YouTube channel. So that was definitely an honor for somebody overseas to be feeling my art. So yeah, I'm grateful for that. I paint. I've been like here. This is what I painted.
I'm curious to know, how did London, like, how did they become aware of your paintings?
I had to submit it like how I submitted my book for the contest. I submitted my paintings for the like I had to pay. It was a paid contest that you submit your art. Like they have open calls all the time, and
Okay.
I just decided to submit my art that day.
Okay. All right. Now you don't only you do the abstract on the canvas, but you also do notebooks, T-shirts, cell phone cases. Do you have any samples right now?
Yeah. Okay.
You mind showing us? Yes.
Yeah. So I just showed you First Bloom. This is a hard copy notebook, blank with lines on it. It got lines. So that's the
Okay.
notebook. And then this is what the spiral looks like.
Okay. Nice.
That's a
And
spiral.
all of this can be found on Amazon.
It's actually on Threadless, Frenchie's Wonders .threadless.com.
Okay.
It's on Threadless. This one is actually it's called Power of the Pussy. I hope I can say that online. But this is this is also another notebook, and then here's another one. I got some t-shirts, but I didn't think to bring that. But here's this is green green storm, I think it's called.
Okay.
So yeah, now, I've been putting my paintings on. I'm sorry.
No, I was just gonna say, when you get into your creative mode, how long would it take you to like just create, even if it's just a notebook, or how long would it actually take you to create something?
I sit down and paint in spurts. So it might take me an hour, 2 hours just to sit down and paint it and let it dry, put more layers on it. So it maybe take me about two hours. I might sit down and paint for 2 hours. And then all the rest of it is simple, but the painting is integral.
Okay. Now, does the painting and creation of the things that you create, does it help you kind of mask the pain that you suffered or been through?
What it does is, see, I've just experienced, I've only, talked about a few of the things that I've been through, but I've been through so much like compounded trauma, that I'm always seeking out ways that I can decompress and stay relaxed and keep my joy. That's all it's about. Girls just want to have fun. I just want to stay happy and in my good place. I just want to stay in my happy place. So painting keeps me relaxed. It's it's just like, I'm not even thinking about nothing else. That's the whole thing. I'm blocking out and just really trying to stay positive. That's what all the creativity is about.
Okay. All right. And then, so you are also co-author of some other anthologies.
I am. Yes. Thanks for asking. I am the co-author of a #1 Amazon bestseller, Finding Joy in the Journey, Volume 2, Healthy Ways of Finding Joy During Difficult Times. It's a 90-day devotional. This is what it looks like. It's available on my website for signed copies, and also available on Amazon. And that was an awesome project that I got on from Facebook. Vanessa Blackwell was advertising for calls for authors, and finding joy in the journey. That's exactly what I was just talking about with the art. I'm looking for ways of finding joy. So when I heard that title, it resonated with me. And so she gathered 90 authors, and we all wrote a chapter in the book.
Okay. That's interesting.
That's the first anthology that I jumped on. Later on in 2021, I one of the authors of Finding Joy in the Journey, co-author Angie B, she was offering an open call as well for authors, and her series is called, and I'm an author in this series, is called The Single Saved Struggle. The Struggle Continues. And 8 authors in this particular series, we talked about our pandemic stories. So, all of the things that we were going through during the pandemic, we wrote about it. But the cool thing about this particular book is it's an audio book. So it's available on audiobook on my website. Recently, as of late, the anthologies were recently published. Gold Nuggets, I don't have that one yet. I just got it in the mail, but I ain't picked it up yet. Gold Nuggets for Entrepreneurs, Lessons That Change Your Life, published in December. And it was presented by Singapore's Vicky Esther Chang. and she is a podcaster as well. And we've been over the years, since 2021, we've been going back and forth, being guests on each other's shows. And she presented me with the opportunity as a businesswoman to talk about some of my experiences and expertise in regards to business in this anthology called Gold Nuggets for Entrepreneurs. And I'm really excited about that, because I definitely shared a lot of tips and resources, not just for Black business owners, but for any business owner. And there are so many oh my God, so many resources, from podcasting. How does religion um uh play a part in podcasting, knowing your why. So that was a great project to be a part of recently. Took me a long time to write my chapters, but I got it in. And then lastly, thank you. Lastly, I wrote a piece for the strategy and struggle, and that is it's volume 2, and that's a mini ebook series. So it's only available in ebook on certain platforms. And 5 women entrepreneurs, we tell our business stories of how we have experienced successes in our business. We've experienced so much that has impacted our lives, and we share those stories in the strategy and struggle.
Okay. All right. Well, I would like to say before we get out of here, I think that you are a good inspiration to a lot of people who may have gone through a lot of similar situations that you have been. You can show people that you can deal with traumas and pain and still be strong and still be successful. I hope you continue to share your story, and I hope you become a speaker soon. But before we get out of here,
Yes.
please let everybody know about your websites, where they can find you, your podcast, if you have an IG, Facebook.
Yes, ma'am. I really appreciate you, Londa, for allowing me to share my story with your audiences. Very grateful for you. So my website is a Wix site. Is bit.ly. I like to give the short version, bit.ly/capital F as in Friday, RENCHY, capital BOOKS. So that's bit.ly/Frenchie Books. You can also tap into me on my other website, Linktree. The link tree is /Frenchaire Gfrenchaire, capital G. You can buy my art, and products designed with the art on those collections are available at Frenchies.threadless.com. That's FRENCHYS Wonders, WONDERS.threadless.com. A news you can use podcast that promotes BIPOC business owners and artists is available, is streaming everywhere you listen to your podcast: Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, Audible, Amazon Music. Wherever you listen to your podcast, you can search for a News You Can Use podcast. I wish that you do follow and subscribe, and hit the bell so that you can get the notifications. And Instagram, I am on Instagram under my whole name. I've done rebranding, so I've left rebranded from Being Us LLC just to be an author for Frenchaire Gardner. So on Instagram, I'm under my first and last name, Frenchaire_Gardner. And on Facebook, same thing. My Facebook page is Frenchaire Gardner. You can join my if you are a BIPOC business owner and want to promote your businesses to the group. I have a Facebook group called Ujamaa Market, UJAMAA Market. You can search for that. TikTok, I'm under Frenchaire. under my first name, Clubhouse, under Frenchaire Gardner, and Twitter, I'm under Miss MS Frenchie FRENCHY 06. Tap in.
Okay, all right. It was a pleasure having you. I want to thank everybody who jumped in the comments and who tuned in. You guys all have a good night. Until next.
No, it really can't compare.